Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my overview of the latest letter from the producer. Fortunately, it just says 86th up there, so I can stop having to actually remember Roman numerals for one brief second, or just remember even the previous live letter that I did. This is the part 2 live letter for patch 7.2, and had a little bit more than I was expecting, and a lot of really exciting details for those who are interested in the content that is coming for 7.2, but I will cover some more, I guess, insight into how I feel about some of those things as we get into it. So it started with the trailer. I've released a separate trailer reaction that has both the Japanese and English trailers, so go watch that if you're curious. But it was a really fun trailer. Some use of some classic Final Fantasy music in there as well. But yeah, let's save that for everything else. Now, for the translations, we are actually going to be using the official Reddit Discord. I say official, the unofficial Reddit translations done by Aluna Minori and Miyuna. These are the same ones we use every time. So if you've ever watched my coverage of live letters before, I'm almost always using the Reddit Discord. So thanks to them for doing these translations as per always. So it started confirmation that the patch is going to be March 25th. I've been saying this for months and months and months, even before our first live letter for 7.2. Just follows pattern, 19 weeks between patches. Remember, unless they sometimes deviate, they do deviate off by a week, and sometimes it's 20, but most of the time it's a reasonable prediction that it will be 19 weeks. So add 19 to that, and you've probably already got the date for 7.3. There will be a 24-hour maintenance for this patch, so I hope you have something else to do that day. Fortunately, Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out literally like 4 days before maintenance, so you can at least have that one thing to do, as long as you have a Switch. There's them just talking about the English trailer. They're just talking about how they changed the music at some point. And then they just kind of got into doing an overview. You know, they do this at the start of every part 2 live letter. Just a reminder of the things they've already talked about. So, new main scenario quests, new dungeon, the Underkeep, new trial recollection on both normal and extreme. We did find out it will only be 1 totem per clear this time. Apparently, it's not a very long fight, so I guess they decide only 1. I'm still kind of surprised that they even bother doing 1 totem fights anymore. I just, you guys think you have to do 99 runs? Yeah, if I want. No, listen, I'm not going to get them out before 99 runs. So yeah, I think that's what I have to do. Even more if I want the weapons. I feel like we're at a point where 2 totems should just be the standard. I get that they use the length of the fight to some capacity. I personally just don't agree with that assessment. I think we're at the point where you don't need to drag the content out, that particular content out, much longer, especially for people who want to collect the weapons. So, either way, moving on to the Arcadian, we finally got confirmation that Savage is 1 week after 7.2. Every raid group I know was planning for that 1 week delay, myself included. So if they didn't do it, it would have been a disaster, and they didn't mention it till now. However, in the interview that they released the day before with Famitsu and several other Japanese media outlets, they did confirm that will be the norm going forward for all 0.2 and 0.4 patches. So no more question marks on that. We're glad that they're keeping it. Crafted gear is released in 7.2 and Savage is a week later, and that will continue to be the case. Expansion launches will probably still be that 2 week followed by 2 week delay for normal and Savage, but for the 0.2 and 0.4, we now have this. And they even say it right here again. We will continue to release this with this schedule in the future. Reminder that Frontline Secure is coming back, and they do actually go pretty deep into that later in the live letter. Suzaku Unreal is coming back, or it's going to be the next Unreal, I should say. I'm going to have a lot more deaths than Byakuya did. I can already tell you that. They reminisce a little bit about some of the bugs from when the fight initially released, like a melee LB3, effectively killing you. Not all of them, specifically Dragoon and Monk, but unfortunate for those 2 jobs back then. There will be job adjustments, and while we don't ever get details too specifically, we got 2 confirmations. There will be melee DPS buffs, and there will be Nikto perfs. Dude, you can tell I've already been awake for way too long. Picto nerfs. Picto nerfs as well. Now, if I had to predict a nerf, the best thing to do is to just take some power out of their painted skills specifically. I would guess the hammer. The hammer is one of their kind of big tools that just gives them a lot of power, especially during downtime encounters. By hitting the painted skills, they can subsequently also pull back on some of the power that they have in downtime heavy fights like Fru. So if in a full uptime fight, they are also looking to see a tiny nerf This won't impact them that significantly, but pushes the melee DPS and potentially Black Mage a little bit higher. And while it is unmentioned, Black Mage has seen significant changes as per detailed by Yoshi P's actual playing of the job. The Astral Fire and Umbral Ice timers are gone completely, as well as the timers seemingly for Thundercloud and Firestarter. I don't know what the Black Mage Discords are saying right now about it, but I'm sure it's dark and gloomy because that's the only thing they have to say, it feels like nowadays. Hopefully, that's not the case. It definitely is. Are there anything else we don't know for certain? So I will not comment on any jobs, other jobs, because we don't have details on it. New role actions exclusive to large-scale PvP. They will cover that later. New crafted gear. That's normal. Not new crafter gear. Crafted gear. 7.3 for the next crafter gear. Duty support for the Sunken Temple of Karn. I think Cutter's Cry is next for 7.3. But we'll be taking a look at that dungeon to see how it's different. And then we have Elegant Tomestones of Mathematics. And then finally, we start getting into in-game footage of Cosmic Exploration. Or we will be getting into in-game footage of Cosmic Exploration and a few other things soon. Cosmic Exploration is 7.21, and Occult Crescent, or the Crescent Isle, is going to be 7.25. Now, very specifically, we do get dates on these things, and they will effectively both be 4 and 8 weeks after Savage releases. So you're basically looking at May for the Occult Crescent. It will be May 27th specifically, and I think it was April 22nd, which is actually, so it's actually 4 and 9 weeks, I think, technically. Because I think April 22nd that's 4 weeks after patch, but 3 weeks after Savage. But Occult Crescent is May 27th and not May 20th, and May 20th would be 8 weeks. Math. Either way, we have the release date for this content all the same. We also have Allied Society Quest for the Mammal Jaw, also in 7.25 in May, and inconceivably further Hildebrand Adventures in also May. Now, into more detail. The first thing they go into is the Arcadian, and I'm already pumped, even for just the normal modes. So we get to see quite a few of these bosses in the patch trailer, but we weren't really sure about the order of them. However, we now know that Disco Bunny, as I'm calling them in their non-dancer form, is the first boss of basically of M5, of the M1 of the Cruiserweight division. And their actual boss name is Dancing Green. And this is an incredibly awesome fight from a design perspective right out the gate. So the boss itself has a different theme for in battle and out of battle. So out of battle, it's got this like funky disco theme that's going, but when you start the fight, the music changes into its like active battle phase. And all of the boss's mechanics seemingly match with the in battle music. So when he's doing certain attacks, he'll do it to the beat of the background song that's happening. So it's like it's his active battle mechanic, the music itself, which means learning the song actually in a lot of essence will help you learn the encounter itself. So from a design perspective, already nailing it pretty much. And I really loved the first tier of the Arcadian. Yes, the last boss was missing some health, but for a first tier across the board, I had a good time. And my complaints feel very minor in essence compared to everything that could go wrong. Now I'm still scared because historically the second tier, not every time, but a lot of the times, is the worst received tier of the entire expansion, especially the second and third encounters. The third encounter is cursed throughout almost every expansion except like Heaven's Ward and A Realm Reborn. I swear those are the only two where the third encounter is not cursed in some capacity. So I'm hoping they break that curse this time because Arcadian has just been an absolute pleasure. So Dancing Green, Walls Are Death. They show him fighting him for a little bit. Some of the mechanics being based on the music. Yeah. So like these half room AoEs, he does like 1 and then he does 1, 2 to the beat. And then he does 1, 2, 3 to the beat and then swings to the other side. So he's, again, the musical elements are already very, very prevalent. Very curious to see what that animation will look like on Savage and how different it will be. They are going to talk about PvP next, but then they actually show off some gear. This is the Arcadian gear, and that is a thick Gunblade. The rest is that kind of like similar casual wear that the other Arcadian users have that honestly a lot of the people in Solution 9 have, just in a different style. But we got Doomfist right here. Look at these fist weapons. Straight up, it's the closest thing I've ever seen to a Ratatan weapon as far as I'm concerned. I'm a huge fan of the Omega Fists, as I am calling them. Big fan. The Dancer gear as well. I mean, I guess I kind of skipped over, but yeah, you can see what the monk gear, the striking gear, kind of looks like with that one. We also get another look at the Fizz range gear. Not a good angle to judge the Dancer weapons, so I can't say much about them here. But that is the gear set with the goggles and everything. We do have the daggers. Big fan of the daggers. Very PSO2 looking weapons. I mean, kind of all of this stuff is very PSO2-esque. And that's not the only thing that'll be PSO2-esque in this Phantasy Star Online 2. Esque in this patch. You got a closer look at the scouting gear with that one. The maiming gear with that huge mecha scythe. Then we have this is healer, I believe. So this is white mage right here. Very strange, but I guess green for healer, I suppose. And then we saw the caster gear, which is of course going to be the palette swap, and quite frankly, one of my favorite red mage weapons as far as I'm concerned. I'm a big fan of the mecha red mage sword, the thick mecha red mage sword. For some reason, that just works for me. Like it's not like the soul style I like for them, but I like it. I like it. PvP updates. So we are getting Frontline Secure returning, but we are also getting some just general adjustments to large-scale PvP. Players may select one of 3 actions available for each role. So tank will have 3 actions, healer will have 3 actions, and you pick one, and that will be your role action, specifically for things like Frontlines, Rival Wings, Secure, Shatter, all that stuff. So if you're someone who does your PvP roulette, you farm your series rewards, this is one more thing for you to consider. Now, we do see one example from each. We have some idea of some of the other things that are there, but here are some detailed examples. Tank has the Rampage action, attacks all nearby enemies and increases their damage taken. It's really good. Warrior jumps in, hits everyone with Rampage, and then everyone else can, deal with them after the fact. Stone Skin 2 for healers. Really funny to see that coming back. Barrier around self and nearby party members. Melee DPS gets swift, increases movement speed for 4 seconds while granting immunity to various status effects and knockback draw in. So that's good for escaping, but that can also just be used to try to very kind of more safely deal with somebody who, like, if you're going to be peeled off of somebody that you're trying to kill, it can also be used for something like that. I don't know if you've ever been yanked off of a target while you're trying to kill, somebody that you're attacking, and then they get away with like 10% health. This is something you could use to kind of get over that. Dervish, actually the return of an action from Bozia. We did have Forgotten Dervish there, and basically does the same thing. Reduces cast and recast time of weapon skills and spells for self and nearby party members while also increasing movement speed. I think the movement speed is new to PvP, but that's the Fizz ranged action. And then the magic range action they show is Comet. Deals damage to enemies near the point of impact. Cast time required, cannot be canceled. We actually got to see Comet quite a few times. Basically a second limit break with about, I think, a 40-second cooldown is what it had in when he was using it in Frontline Secure. So yeah, it's almost like a second. I mean, now when it says cannot be canceled, it means once you start casting it, you cannot move to interrupt it. You cannot press another action to. I could probably be interrupted or stunned by an opponent, but you are hard committed to it. So you have to be very sure. I'm curious to see if we'll see like groups of like 4 black mages or 8 black mages just timing comets all at one time, or like 7 black mages and like a dark knight or something, just all timing the comet. That's that's gonna be funny. Swift's Law is meant to allow you to come home alive. Movement skills that were limited to party members you can use on alliance members now. So this is something that now this I'm not entirely sure about. Movement skills that were limited to party members can be used on alliance. I don't know if that means stuff like rescues and whatnot, or anything that would require a target like a thunderclap or whatever. I still haven't looked at the PvP skills from 7.1, the updates, but I'd assume that's what that means. Maybe Peloton working on everyone. Maybe even Dervish. Maybe Dervish works on everyone. I don't know. I guess I'm not 100% certain. It doesn't help not knowing the 7.1 PvP skills. So we'll see what we can do with that. So Secure's back. Up to 72 players, 3 teams of 24. Get your tactical rating to max to win. There's 9 key locations you can control. There's elegant weaponry in the middle, and you can also defeat enemy players to get tactical rating. Very similar, basically, to the original, just with a few brand new things. In case you're wondering why they're bothering to explain how Secure works, some people may have started playing the game since after Secure was removed, which, as a reminder, was basically 3 years ago. So 3 years, a lot of players may just not know what Secure is or how it's supposed to work, even before considering what is new. So if you understand, that's all that's really being explained here, except that there's 9 key locations, so a lot more to fight over in this one. Now, there's a brand new buff called Sheer Will. Any player standing on the point, any player, whether they're the occupying team or the team attempting to occupy, will receive the Sheer Will buff, massively increasing their damage taken. So being able to coordinate around the point is very, very important. The efforts of getting into the point to get the buff are also important. And pushing people out of the point or pulling them out of the point now gives you a pretty massive advantage over them, as long as you have team members that are actually able to, utilize this space. Having like black mages or bards or like just ranged in general that are in, while tanks keep the other people out, or even just anyone peeling or CCing people as they're approaching a point, can be a lot more valuable of a strategy now. So it starts as an advantage for the occupying team, and if the team running at you gets in, then you're basically fighting on equal footing. It's not going to stop you from getting mobbed as one person defending a point by 10 people who run over and try to assassinate you, but in a theoretical, more even encounter, it gives you basically a starting advantage, I suppose would be the one thing to say. The elegant weaponry in the middle, you have these towers, which you'll want to stand in. But yeah, there's like little nodes, and then there's the massive node. And so you're going to want to be competing to, you're going to want to be killing these things, having the majority of the damage dealt to any of the targets in the center. And yes, if you do not stand in those towers, I guess something not good happens. Or maybe something good happens if you do stand in those towers, and it's the other way around. They're also adding teleporters that will activate on occasion at certain periods of time. It seems like it's right before major objectives spawn based on the gameplay, or while a major objective is available in the center of the map. But you can teleport directly to the middle in order to, get to the elegant weaponry faster. On top of that, they did showcase some new quality of life. We talked about this in the interview video, but you can now cast your mount while running. Now, it's not instant cast. You still have a cast time for your mount, but running no longer interrupts the cast of it. So yes, you can go from a full run to using your mount without stopping, something that a lot of people are probably going to have trouble getting used to. They will also later show off something else they mentioned in the interviews, where now in sanctuary areas or out of combat, I guess specifically, when you sprint, when the sprint wears off, you'll get a slightly less effective movement speed buff called jog, and that will go unless you enter combat. We don't know the exact specifics of that yet, because in the interview they said safe areas or sanctuaries, and in the video he showed, he was in a sanctuary the entire time. But he more specifically said this just doesn't work in combat, which leaves it open to some interpretation. I think it'll probably just be sanctuaries, since the interviews seem to imply as much. Even Yoshi P jokes. Only took us 10 years. Yeah, that joke kind of hurts, Yoshi P. That's the jokes that we make. It hurts when you make it. Hurts a little bit more at the very least. And then he just ran around the map and showcased the objective. There's gold nodes in the middle here too, you can see. And also a new UI element. So when an objective is about to spawn, there will be a countdown, and certain objectives will only be available for a certain amount of time. For example, these 6 nodes in the center here, when the timer runs out, they will all self-destruct. So you want to make sure you're there and taking them out before the timer actually fully expires. So that is something to note. Also, after using the teleporter, he was given invincible, which means that you cannot just immediately camp people as they're coming out of the teleporter. They will be temporarily invincible, and so if they quickly target you, you're very likely to be on the suffering side of that occasion. Even as fun as it would be to attempt to knock them off, which is why they have the invincible thing there, so you can't be pulled out or, knocked off or anything as soon as you land. But yeah, the golden one is there, and then, That's it. I mean, there's not really much else to say. They do also, again, go over these. Like, this is Phantom Dart, and my translate on my phone didn't have a good translation for this one. But Comet, Phantom Dart. Phantom Dart, I'd assume, increases the damage taken of the opponents that you hit with it. I assume it's just like the other ones. But yeah, there's only one action. This button at the bottom is the roll action. So it's not like you have to drag these individually onto your bar. You just drag this onto your PvP hotbar, and whichever action is set will populate this action space. Then they showed off Tomestone gear, which had a mix of like Final Fantasy IX and stuff I didn't fully recognize, which may be Final Fantasy IX, and it just didn't make sense to me. That's Steiner gear, Final Fantasy IX. That's 100% Steiner. There's no denying that. That's Freya's spear, but the gear set is, I guess, the Knights of Pluto still, or some iteration of the Knights of Pluto. I think that it's just because this one looks like Steiner no matter what, because, I mean, look at him. But that is Freya's spear, at the very least, for Tomestone gear. We have, I don't know if this is supposed to be Amarant, because, like, it kind of looks like, I mean, it's really the gloves that look like Amarant. I guess without the hair being, like, as ridiculous as it is, and the weird proportions that Final Fantasy IX has, I saw the bandana and thought Marcus initially. But that is his pose, the, like, him like looking away, kind of. Just, I guess with the samurai sword, it just like it messes with my image. But that is the Amarant, the Amarant set. Now, interestingly enough, Freya's set is here, but on Fizz ranged. I guess because they thought it was more pirate-y than dragoon-y, they gave it to Fizz ranged. But yeah, that's the Freya set. We have Zidane 2.0, or as my chat put it, the Timu Zane Zidane. Timu Zidane, which I thought was hilarious, and I'm going to be referring to this as Timu Zidane for the entirety of its existence because of that. Because we already have a Zidane set in the game, and that one's like really close to the original, so I can't help but think it. The White Mage set here doesn't ring any bells from Final Fantasy IX. I don't know if this is supposed to be like the clerics, the what are they called? My brain is broken. I need more coffee, clearly. It doesn't look enough like Dagger's outfit. Like, we've seen Dagger's outfit in the trailer. We've seen it in the artwork. It just doesn't look close enough to it. So I can't really associate it. Like, the hood miss. Yes, it reminds me of the Burmesians in Clara, but with the hat not being as tall, and honestly, the design is not even close. But I guess, like, it's too far off from Dagger/Garnet for me to associate with it. It just doesn't look like it at all. And then that. I mean, it's the same thing, but palette swap, but that. Moving on. Anyway, then we got the in-game showcase of Cosmic Exploration, and this is way more and way better than I thought it would be. As someone who's a non-crafter or a gatherer, I was like, it's probably pretty interesting, but I didn't do a whole lot of Ishgard. It wasn't super interesting. You can tell they took a lot of feedback from Diadem and Ishgard as a whole, and Island Sanctuary. There's like, you could see the elements of all of them that were taken, and pretty much all the best parts. So you only need to beat the Endwalker story in order to start this. The first zone will be on the moon, making our actual space base so that we can go to all of the other stars. So makes sense for Endwalker. It's level 10 or above for Disciples of Hand and Land. So you will be able to level with it. And they do confirm this later. You don't have to worry about your actual level. It will actually sync you to make sure the content will, like, you and the content will be synced to make sure that you can fairly participate in pretty much everything. So you can use it to level and not feel like you're being restricted by your actual choice of level to entry. Diadem and Ishgard were the same way, but with the game systems they show off here, it's probably more important to say that here than it is with the other stuff. And probably the biggest news, there's a separate inventory for Cosmic Exploration. Something they definitely learned from Island Sanctuary, and something I am incredibly grateful for, because Diadem inventory was awful. I hated dealing with the inventory stuff in Diadem. So to have a Diadem that effectively has all of its inventory shifted into just a category. Thank you. Thank you. Thank goodness. Thank goodness they're doing that, because that is... Okay. Then we get to see one of the glams, spacesuit. It's glam. We know where to get that spacesuit too, so we'll see it later in this. See it later in this this little video we're doing here. So he walks around the base. We actually get a good look at the tablet UI. So this is basically the Island Sanctuary UI, but stylized like this. So you can pull up all the menus from the tablet in the top left. It keeps track of your currencies as well. And yeah, it just effectively works. There is also Cosmo Sprint or Cosmic Sprint, which kind of works like the Island Sanctuary Sprint, where you activate it and just kind of goes forever. So that's here as well. It works the same as the Island Sanctuary Sprint. It's the best way to put it. What happens to the tails and the suits? They will be hidden. Yeah, you just tuck it in. Let's see. Cosmo. So there's layers of content here. First, there's Cosmo missions. These are really fast leave quests. Like, you have 2.5 minutes to complete them leave quests. That's literally all they are. Require level 10. They give you, credits that you can use, and they explain the credits later. They give you resources and EXP and all that stuff. It's got its own, UI pop-up, or the Cosmo mission's got its own little musical jingles and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's a leave quest. Like, literally, it is a leave quest. See, he's gathering items from like 4 different nodes and just getting as many of them as possible. It's like, that's literally exactly as a leave quest. We progress like a guild leave here, yeah. So there's that for the Cosmo mission. So those are a nice, like, easy, chill way to just kind of progress solo. But it's far from the only activity. There are also emergency missions, and there are also mech ops. And that's also apparently a very basic sort of mission. Apparently there's some that maybe require a little more effort. And the emergency mission, they'll detail later, but basically the weather changes all around the zone, and players have to overcome some sort of obstacle together. It is crafting and gathering content, so don't expect it to be like a raid, but it is effectively a zone-wide collaboration with every other player there. Now, the UI for it also mentions what looks to be specific crafting and gathering jobs that either, I guess, receive bonus or are required for it. So you can see there's blacksmith, leatherworker, mining, armorer, and goldsmith. And those maybe just have better progress for this particular mission. Maybe they receive bonus rewards. It's not made entirely clear. They don't really acknowledge that part of the UI all too closely. But it just says to mind you that you fill the gauge, and each step in the emergency mission will give you rewards, and you'll get bonus rewards at the end. So he quickly just ended the final days because there's meteorites that start falling and everything changes. For mech ops, they're more like zone-wide fates with the dual system from Bozia. So in Bozia, after completing certain fates, you could, if you didn't get hit at all, you could queue up for a duel and then 1v1 an opponent and then try to win. It's not quite like that here, but the idea is the same. So every time there's a mech op, you can actually purchase tickets using the credits that you've been earning, and you can use the ticket to become a mech pilot specifically for the mech ops. I don't know what the reward difference is, if you get better rewards from doing that, like maybe you gather more, which will matter for something later, mind you. We'll get into that. But up to 5 players can be selected to be a mech pilot out of everyone who queues into the mecha operation. And if you don't get selected, then your ticket's refunded and no big deal. So there's that as well. And anyone can join, even if you don't get selected as a pilot, everybody else can still participate in it. They just won't be in the mech. They'll have a slightly different objective. The mech is usually taking care of a larger objective, and the non-mech players are taking care of a smaller objective. In what they show here, Ryoshi P gets selected as a mech pilot. You get a little cutscene, and then you get flown to the location where the mech operation begins, and then it's effectively a giant gathering fate in a sense. There's large crystals that the mech can destroy. So the mech is responsible for those large crystals. And every time they destroy a large crystal, there's a chance that they'll actually get a proc that allows them to fire a giant laser. And that laser instantly pierces a bunch of those crystals. Whereas the players that are not on mechs, they will use a specific like drill tool animation, very similar to how we had the bazooka and diadem. And they will gather the smaller objectives at a generally a slower pace, probably less of them overall. And your goal is to just, in the 5 minutes that this takes to join the event and finish it, to actually fill the entire progress bar like you would a fate. So it is effectively crafting and gathering fates at the end of the day. They do say there's a few different objectives. You may have to, you know, break through a certain, like, an actual objective, like get to the end or like this. But generally speaking, though, it's probably going to be a roughly similar thing. Like, look how many rewards they get from firing the laser. And they actually shot through, like, 4 different crystals, and each crystal gave 2. Because every time you shoot the crystal, you get 1 reward, even though it takes 3 shots to destroy a crystal. So, yeah, there's all this over-aspected crystal that we're gathering here. It looks like the mech is basically just getting more rewards, which, again, will matter for something later, I assume. So, one of the things you can do with the rewards here is Cosmic Fortune. Very similar to the Kupo Fortune stuff that we had back in Ishgard. You basically get 2 roulette wheels with 2 different reward systems. Now, they are similar-ish rewards. You can see, however, there's like a brand new die. It's a metallic cobalt green, which is apparently a brand new die. There's also the availability of the suit that he's wearing, the space suit. There's mounts as well. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that you can earn. Now, on top of there being 2 different roulettes, one of them you can like have tickets for, one of them you can spend credits on. You can also get a bonus game from within. Now, Yoshi P actually landed on the jackpot, which was the suit. So he got excited, and he's doing this because he says it wasn't rigged. I don't think anyone's going to believe him, but you know. Yeah, so see how he landed on the carrot? Yeah, so that's him basically getting the grand prize. As you can see, it's the smallest thing here. There is, of course, the bonus game, which has a slightly larger section and another small section. If he had landed on that, we would have gotten to see that. And he does the second time that he decides to spin the wheel. So that actually opens up more rewards and kind of more evens out the entire wheel. So you can see that there's 2 mounts here, and I believe they are 2 different mounts to boot. Let me zoom and enhance. Are those 2 different mounts? They look like the same mount. Just looking at the text, it's a little blurry. Oh, no, actually they are. I think they... I don't know. It's hard to tell because like there's this little lip on the bottom here, and I don't think my translate app is going to also look at the close in the distance remix that's there. I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think it's just the pixels looking weird because it's just zooming into the screenshot kind of deal. But yeah, it's just a better chance, a bigger reward with the mount, and B, a lot more chances to obtain it, we can see. And he gets the mount, of course, so he's thrilled. So he wins again and again. I knew this would happen, and now everyone else says it's rigged. So while you are doing the content, I've been mentioning credits. You get Cosmo credits, which are just generically turned in for rewards. The lunar credits are how you do the Cosmic Fortunes and the tickets to join Mech Ops. So that's what these 2 rewards are used for. Do missions, get credits, get rewards, and expand the base while doing so. So this is just another brief overview of the Mech Ops that we just went over. You know, 2 groups coordinate on missions to gather minerals and remove obstacles. Critical missions have the unusual weather change, and they must complete designated objectives within a limited period of time. And then we have the ranking system. So Ishgard had a ranking system, and I'll say it was pretty heavily criticized. Not because it was inherently flawed, but because the way the system worked is, if you weren't someone who was playing and basically spamming it 24/7 the entire like 2 weeks after the patch cycle had hit, there was no way to compete. Now, instead, we have a permanent system called the Star Contributor Award, where it only locks players. It only looks at your progress within a 24-hour period. So for 24 hours, it'll look at all of the, contribution that you make, all the minerals gathered, all the items crafted, whatever it is. And whoever has contributed the most in 24 hours will become the star contributor for 14 days, or a star contributor for 14 days. There's then a 24-hour rest period where nobody is actually tallied. And then another 24-hour period, and this repeats indefinitely. So every 2 days, another star contributor is being named. So what does being a star contributor actually do? Being a star contributor, this is all just showing like explaining what I just explained, and also you can actually check your contribution to some capacity. Like this person says they're in the top 10%, and this person says, well, at least your name's written down. So what does it actually do? You get benefits for 14 days. Now, we're going to assume there's maybe an achievement and a title or something, you know, but that's not mentioned here. What we do have mentioned is for 14 days, you'll have a hologram of your character projected, one that you can actually change the pose of, by the way. It's just your different standing poses. You can't, like, do an emote or anything like that, but you can modify your own, you know, actual, like /C pose of your projected hologram, and it'll be of the whatever glam you were wearing, I guess, when you qualified. Not sure exactly how it works. Your name is displayed on the bulletin board within the base camp, and any player who is the star contributor actually gets basically a super yassified sneak emote, you know, like the sneaking buff that you have on gatherers. It's like that whenever you're on the gatherer that you actually earned it on. So like if you earned it on mining, I guess predominant. I don't know, because he got rid of it. Maybe he just clicked it off. I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, you get that thing around you. I guess that's all that really matters. And that player cannot receive star contributor again for 2 weeks. So while they have a hologram, they cannot be named number 1. So somebody else, you know, if they basically score second behind the star contributor, they're basically first if that star contributor is already there. So he does show the animation. Not very good to show it off while he's standing on the very bright ground. But you can see the orbs from like the sneak animation. You can see the Cosmo indicator down here at the bottom. And yeah, like I said, it's a yassified like sneak icon around the person. And because it lasts for 14 days, at most 7 people at once will ever be star contributors per world, mind you. And here you can see the actual holograms in the base and them showing off the players. And then Yoshi P goes in and modifies his /C pose just to look a little bit different. There are going to be so many large naked rows here that are just doing whatever the most obnoxious C pose is. And you know what? They can live their best life. I'm all for it. Yeah. And then there's that. And remember, you can be a star contributor at level 10. Don't have to be level 100 to be the star contributor. Good luck, but you know. This, of course, comes with cosmic tools. So very similar to the previous expansions. You know, you start with a tool and you upgrade it. Probably won't be as good as pentamelded stuff if we're following the trend from previous expansions. It's better for like the casual crafter or the person who just doesn't want to do a lot of melding for their weapon. And also usually looks pretty cool. I'm not wild about the 2 that they're showing here, but I'm just saying that's usually the other benefit is they're like glowy and special and stuff like that. So that's another like progression thing for you to work on. And you don't even need to have them equipped. Even when not equipped, players can enhance cosmic tools. So, you know, you just work on it on the side. Maybe you just use your pentamelded tool and you just progress these for glam on the side. Whatever you're into. Now, keep in mind that everything for cosmic exploration, I said it earlier, is per world. So whatever server you're on, those are the only people you're competing against for star contributor. Those are the only people that will be present in your zone for this. And also, something I kind of skipped over, the zone has no instance timer. So while it's not a zone, it's like Island Sanctuary in that sense, where it's just, you know, you just don't have an instance timer. That's nice, at least. You just won't be able to queue up for other instances or like duties or stuff from here. So, but just wanted to point that out. Just no timer. It's nice. It's nice to not have a timer in the location. But it also means you cannot go to another world and enter their moon base. So just only your world. It's the same. You know how many times I've been visiting a world and I forget that I'm not allowed to go to Ishgard's. I'm not allowed to go to the crafting area, to the side area. I just always forget. Same here. Just can't do that. Now, in terms of the release schedule, there will be a new star with similar and probably additional activities every major patch until the end of the expansion. I'm not going to lie, if this is popular, we might just see them recycle the same idea, maybe even just continue down this path in a future expansion. I don't know, I wouldn't mind. I really like the use of mechanics that are already in the game to create something that's a little bit more collaborative. Definitely going to be a very social experience. Diadem was incredibly social comparatively to just like doing regular leave quests or doing these things elsewhere. So it'll definitely feel more MMO-y, even with those classic solo systems that we've had in the past. Yeah, the Firmament, that's what it's called. I kept wanting to say Foundation. No, the Foundation is the main zone. All right, and then they took a break and they showed a few music videos, ones that they've uploaded to YouTube. And then we got in-game footage of the Occult Crescent, the first zone in Crescent Island. So This will be max level content. You will not be able to level inside of Crescent Island. We knew this already, but I'm reiterating it now. Their reason being that they're adding a new deep dungeon in 7.3, and that will be the secondary leveling content outside of the usual things that we already have this expansion. So you do need to finish Dawn Trail in order to enter and to be level 100, and you will have to go to a specific NPC in order to queue up. Every instance has 72 players. Same thing as Bozia. All of this is the same entry conditions, the same restrictions, everything as Bozia was. Even when in a party, everyone will join the same instance. That's all normal. So then we have progression systems. Knowledge level is elemental level from Eureka. When you gain more knowledge level, your stats go up and you can more easily battle enemies of higher and higher knowledge levels. When you die after knowledge level 5, if you release back to the home point, then you will lose a third of a level, we assume. A third of a level was in Eureka, so we assume a third of a level here. Could be less, could be more, who knows. But yeah, it's got the EXP losing mechanic also from Eureka, but if you are rezzed, you will not lose experience, so don't have to worry about that. Then they went to in-game footage, the Occult Crescent, the South Horn. It does, a little zoom around the map, shows us the inside of Forked Tower, shows us some of the ruins, a lot of Nimian stuff, a lot of Amdapori stuff. Very curious to see how much of the War of the Magi is going to be detailed here. Was this like a sanctuary they found during the flood and actually continued to war even after the War of the Magi was done? Was it just a land that the Nimians and the Amdapori were fighting over? Who knows, but we're probably going to find out very, very soon. So, if we place the weather NPC here, well, yeah, weather conditions to spawn certain things, you can assume that's going to be the case. Also elementals and some of the other features like we've had in Eureka. There are 13 total support jobs when it first releases, the Phantom support jobs. One is Freelancer, and then there are 12 others. We don't know all 12 of them, but we do know a handful of them. So you can see here that Freelancer level 1, no next, but then it also has an item here. It's not made clear if that particular item is used just to level up Freelancer, but in Final Fantasy V, Freelancer is not really like a job you level. It effectively allows you to pull actions from every other job in the game. So it's possible that Freelancer will fulfill a similar-ish effect here, where it'll give you a little bit more customization if you default back to it. I personally don't think they're going to go that intense with it, but I also can't read the UI for it. Maybe I'll try translating it real quick and see if it gives more insight. But I would prefer just to have to make the decision to use the other Phantom jobs. And Freelancer was kind of your just like, I'm super OP, God tier endgame thing. Maybe when every Phantom job is released, they'll allow that. But before that point, I don't expect it. So, Phantom Freelancer, as you can see, does have a couple of support actions. We don't get to actually read them right here, but we can see the icons for them at Phantom Jobs level 5 and 10. Now, please keep in mind his knowledge level is listed at the top as 6, and we don't know what the maximum is for that, but that is your elemental level equivalent, so that's going to be important. You will have different levels between your knowledge level and your Phantom Job level. The first quest will unlock a handful of support jobs, and as you can see, we have a few right here. The first quest unlocks 3, and the rest will be through progression of the Occult Crescent. So we actually get to see a handful here, and I can actually pull up what some of these are. So we have Phantom Bard up first, and while the translate doesn't exactly have the right name of the songs, I could probably guess. We know one of them is Mighty March. We have Attack Song, Love Song, Song of Strength, and Hero Song. We could assume that maybe Mighty March is the Attack Song, the level 1 song. It is the one they used as an example. And then Hero's Rhyme is probably one of them, and I'm having a hard time remembering some of the others, but those are the 4 songs it has at support levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, or at Phantom Job level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And at Phantom Job level 2, they also get Song Effect up as a trait. Now, going on to the next one, we have Phantom Time Mage. And this has some interesting stuff. I think a lot of people will like this. It has Sloga, Comet, Mage Masher, Dispel, and Quick. Quick is the question mark one, because Quick was effectively kind of like an action surge from Final Fantasy V. It just basically lets you act a couple of times in a row immediately after. So they might use it to like maybe reset the cooldown of your other support actions. It's entirely possible. And then Sloga, you know, we expect there's just going to be some bosses that maybe attack really fast and you want to Sloga them, or have buffs that you want to dispel. All really like straightforward stuff that you know people will want to use on a lot of bosses. Now, before we get into the other jobs, which I'm trying to remember because I looked at the other jobs. Knight had like cover. It had protect, which I assume is just the cover, which is exactly what they had in 5. I can't remember because I don't think there's pictures of them all here. Maybe there are pictures a bit later. But during the live letter, I went over all of them. But that's just a few examples anyway. We'll be getting our hands on this in a couple of months. Now, in terms of bonus actions, a lot of people were wondering what they would do. Would they use the bonus action system that is not the greatest, not the cleanest to use? Or would they let you put it on your hotbar? And the answer is both. They have up to 5 actions in the new system that it rotates between. So effectively, you can rotate between your current active action as well as just drag them onto the hotbar. So yeah, you basically have access to all of your actions. Now, we don't know how this actually works in like active combat. Like, is there some sort, can you only rotate actions when one's not on cooldown? I don't think it's made entirely clear, even if I'm to translate the UI here. All that allows you to change is the rotation. And it also, no, it says you also have the option to return to slot 1 after the action is performed. So it sounds like it's a free rotation, and that in order to help navigate it quicker, you can choose to have it reset to the base action. So you don't have to manually go back to whatever your most reliable action is. But they did also confirm that you could just drag it onto the hotbar. He does it right here. You can see this is one of his actions. So if you have the hotbar space for it, you can just drag the actions onto your hotbar as well, which is really, really nice. You can also see that the Phantom job also needs levels. I'm assuming this book is used to help level. I'll have to pay attention later, because this book is present in both the Freelancer and the Time Mage job, and we're not really clear what it does. It's possible that it's just used for EXP, like using it gives you Phantom job experience. That's not that far off from what I expected. I expected maybe crystal shards would be used, because in Final Fantasy V, all the jobs are obtained from crystal shards. Oh, that makes sense. All that is your Phantom job spellbook. He clicks on it in the video. He clicked on it during the live letter. I just forgot. Yeah, that just opens your actual actions. So yeah, Freelancer's level is still weird. But we'll see the EXP acquisition a little bit later, because he does actually chain some mobs together. He just fought a few random mobs, and then he walked around a little bit and went over to a boss. He kills a really so he kills a really low level mob here. He doesn't get any knowledge level because the enemy is 5 levels under him. So that still does matter here, your knowledge level versus the enemy knowledge level. However, killing that mob was worth 10 Phantom Job EXP. So it looks like the level difference probably still matters for that, but it might be more just indicative of the monster you're actually killing. But either way, you are going to have to kill random monsters in order to level up in here. Very similar to Eureka. Don't worry, they actually have some information about that later that assures us it won't be as bad as anything like Eureka Pagos was. It released Eureka Pagos in that particular regard. He then sneaks over to a critical engagement equivalent, stands on it, and basically queues into it. And then dies to the Neo Garula, which is a reference to Final Fantasy V. Stands on the pulsing circle. The encounter starts with everyone that is standing in the area. So yeah, critical engagements can support the entire zone now. They don't just support up to 24 or 48 people, but you have to go and basically stand on the critical engagement zone. So if you're actively going after critical engagements, you will actively be going and walking onto those areas in order to participate in them. There are also fates, which can be joined at any time, and they just kind of spawn out in the world, very, very similar to the non-critical engagements of Bozia or the notorious monsters of Eureka. Whereas the critical engagements here have the standing on principle. And then he died. And then he cheated and resurrected himself because he's a developer, and then teleported back to base. So I don't know why he was trying to preserve his EXP when it's a demo. Just show us how much EXP. He just didn't want to show us how much EXP he lost. That's all he wanted to do. That's all he did. There are also the lore. The little lore notes, those are returning as well, and you're going to want to collect all of those because there is almost certainly a reward. And I think I know what it is already because I think we see it later in this live letter. Then this goes over the knowledge level, you know, an enemy of a higher knowledge level is a higher level effectively. And so your knowledge level versus their knowledge level, it's just, that just determines the strength. It's the same as elemental levels in Eureka. Also, chaining is back. This is where if you kill an enemy that is like equal to or above your knowledge level, and you kill them in quick succession, then your rewards go up and up and up. Makes it really easy to actually level. And for that, you're going to want to form a party. Now, one of the biggest problems in Eureka with forming parties to do EXP chains was needing to be around the same level. If you are not around the same level, it basically didn't work. So it completely segmented people who were hardcore doing the content and people who were just kind of doing it casually because they couldn't group up together for anything except notorious monsters, which is why notorious monster trains became such a prevalent thing in Eureka as opposed to actually killing random mobs most of the time. So to fix that, they took exactly the feedback that we had. In fact, Final Fantasy XI, the thing Eureka was modeled after, had this already. And they added a knowledge level sync. If you are 4 or more levels above a player in your party, you can sync down to within 2 levels above them. So if a player is level 3 and you're level... I'm sorry, if a player is level 2 and you're level 6... then it'll sync you down to level 5. So it's within 3 levels of them. And it even says here, you need to be within 3 knowledge levels in order to be eligible for EXP chains. So you never need to worry. If you are max level in Occult Crescent and your friend just started and they're level 1, you can sync down and you can play with them and you will get EXP as if you were playing at your current level. So, I mean, yeah, people wanted this even outside of the game. There's just no reason to really party outside of the game for much of anything that isn't fates or dungeons, and those already sync levels. Yeah. So that's what they go and do. They sync each other's level down, and then they start fighting these goobos. And yeah, you can see now there's a 3-level difference between them, so they can start fighting the gooboo, and they do, and that's fine. Leave me alone, spam caller, in the middle of something. And, yeah, he gets 12. I noticed it's only 12 Phantom EXP for this, so, interesting. But he did get a pretty substantial amount. He got 100 and... not even 100. He got, like, 88, it looks like, regular EXP. So you're really going to want to be chaining at the end of the day. Where are the heals? Oh, my goodness. Yoshi P making fun of Quinn? My man hit him with the eels quote. Damn, that's toxic. All right. So, yeah, and then they just kill a few goobos there. He even said, even Foxclaw, like, where's Cardia? Listen, you better yell at them. They got to fix it. They got to get that Cardia up. And yeah, so they just kill a few of those. And then you have to make sure that you're killing them in quick succession. And that it keeps up. Yeah, oh, yeah, the chain EXP is way more significant. At chain 1, chain 2, yeah, you can already see it starting to add up pretty quick. You can see here, chain 2, 43 seconds left. And there you go. And now this is them just going over the things I told you earlier. There's fates, which you can enter at any time. You don't have to be there when it starts. Critical engagements, no limits. And also every player who's there participates, but you need to be in that circle beforehand on the map. And then there's the Forked Tower. Now, there was a question about whether this would be Castrum Lacus Latore level or Baldessian Arsenal levels of difficulty. And I think we've got something a little bit in between. So Forked Tower, up to 48 players can challenge this dungeon. And apparently it requires a special item to enter. There are items called ciphers that players can acquire while they're doing content. And when 16 or more players use these ciphers at a designated location, the node activates and teleports them into the tower after a brief period. If more than 48 players are standing on the node when this happens, then players will be randomly selected for teleportation. Those who have used the cipher will have a higher chance. So, a minimum of 16 ciphers to enter, but even with only 16 ciphers, you can take up to 48 people. Just everyone else has to be on the node along with the 16 people. If you have 48 people with the ciphers, then bam, you're all good. Then so be it, you're already going in. However, if there are 49 people, then it will pick one person will be excluded. And if the player doesn't have a cipher, most likely they're being completely excluded. It says higher chance, but that almost means guaranteed in Final Fantasy XIV. However, if there's 49 players and all 49 players have ciphers, then it's just a full random about which of the two that it picks. So the entry here, on one hand, it's nice to be able to just say, I have a cipher, I'm going in. If portals in Eureka, if it was easier to get the portal item, that would have been how we did it. The problem is we don't know what the acquisition of ciphers is like. So let's say that a pre-made group wants to go do this content and they coordinate, 48 people or so, and they go in, and so be it, right? That's all there is to it. But if anyone else in the zone walks up with a cipher, they can take a spot. So there's no... It's like kind of in between, like Delubrum having to make the party. I mean, yeah, a little annoying, but at least you know exactly what you're getting. Bozia, you could farm the item, but it's kind of too annoying. So you just have to hope everyone in the zone plays ball if you have a pre-made group, or you just have to accept that if somebody doesn't play ball, that A, it sucks for the moment, but you maybe try to get them in and like coordinate with them, because obviously you want to succeed, right? The difficulty of the actual encounters is what's in question here, because there are restrictions. We know there's a raise restriction in here. We know there's some very specific uses of phantom jobs, and they actually do expect players to have to progress, and that they're curious to see who World First will belong to. If they're saying all of that, the question becomes what the actual difficulty of the bosses inside, or the monsters inside, or anything inside really is. Because I sincerely doubt it's the Delubrum Savage level, so I'm gonna guess it's closer to BA, which isn't actually BA. BA is not that hard. It's really the actual navigation and the risk of death that's hard in BA, and not anything else. Now keep in mind, while there is a raising restriction in here, phantom jobs that have certain phantom raising abilities can bypass it. Now, we would assume that's like a phantom white mage having phantom raise, and we don't know what the restriction on that is. Is it just like a cooldown of 5 minutes? Is it, or a 1 minute cooldown or something? Do they have phantom sacrifice and they have to die in order to resurrect someone like it was with Bozia? We don't know. That's where the questions remain, because if all you need to do is have phantom raise, that's hardly a restriction, and thus they can make things a little harder and even still make it puggable. We just don't know. It's too many questions at this point to say for certain. They also confirmed you actually don't need to finish the story in order to enter. So if you didn't finish the last story quest, you can still go in and do this content. You just need the cipher to be on the node with the other people who have the cipher. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how it goes. There are also some other features, treasures. Of course, bunnies was one of the most popular things of Eureka. It's something that I did for like a month straight, just bunnies. But treasure hunting's a little different. There's treasure coffers that are in the wild, and you can actually save magic pots and feed them elixirs in order to get hints about where treasure has currently spawned. The question is it competitive against other players? Is it instant to you? Can you find it without the magic pots pointing you in the direction and without completing the magic pot fates? Again, we don't know, but you do need to feed them elixirs. We assume it's a specific elixir that you can purchase in zone. And I don't know. I think that they're making the elixir part of it so you don't, maybe to debottify it a little bit, because elixirs are normally that you're only allowed to carry one. I don't know if that restriction will exist for whatever, the phantom elixir or whatever it's going to be called has, or maybe if it's just a regular elixir, who actually knows? That's just like that's like a classic-ish restriction for something like an elixir. Maybe they just make it so you can hold 99 of whatever you need to give this thing. But either way, I think they're trying to debottify it a little bit, because Eureka bunnies ran into a huge botting problem. Also, so people don't just randomly show up and do it and take like a bunny and then just like not do anything with it. There's a lot of things it could counteract, but without experiencing it, we don't know if it actually does counteract them. And then there are currencies. Enlightenment silver pieces earned from fates and critical encounters, and enlightenment gold pieces acquired from monsters. Whatever items you want to buy with those, you'll have to do that content. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, they don't mention it here, or they don't show it, I should say. There's no slide for it. But they do mention the phantom weapons. The first step, some sort of drop when you clear some sort of content. We know you can do it in and out of Crescent Isle. You don't have to do Crescent Island to do the phantom weapon. But either way, that's where it is. And of course, our buddy Geralt will be there. And then they just have a few comments. You might think about what support job to pick at first, but you're going to level them all anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now, they again reconfirm. We did say this earlier, but they are skipping Occult Crescent in 7.3. 7.4 will just add some new phantom jobs to the existing zone. And then 7.5 will be a whole new zone and even more phantom jobs. So similar in terms of total volume, similar-ish to Bozia, and that was 2 zones and 2 raids inside those zones. The big question was the Delubrum equivalent right in the middle, because it seems like we won't be having that here, which may be why they might be trying to make a slightly higher difficulty for things like Forked Tower, because BA is more alive than DRS, and even DR normal ever was. So I think they don't want to do that standalone instance again. The baggage of it afterwards was quite frankly not worth the struggle. Like, it made sense on patch. It just hasn't been as effective post the relevancy of the Shadowbringers exploration content. So I think they saw that BA's maintained relevancy is far better, and so that they should probably do it that way. But yeah, so that's all they're doing here. Now, what they don't detail is Phantom Job update schedule. Let's still assume that's every patch and that it's still either in or out of Crescent Isle. Even if it's not mentioned, that's how relics have always worked, so that's what I'm going to assume. And 7.5's volume will be about the same as the Occult Crescent's South Horn. And then they have the actual armor. So this armor, while he calls it glam, this does actually have bonus stats for players inside of the Occult Crescent. He does later confirm this after saying this is the glam. Final Fantasy V inspired. You know, the Occult Crescent, Crescent Island, is from Final Fantasy V. The job system that they're using is somewhat derivative of Final Fantasy V. This is Lena from Final Fantasy V. This is Ferris. Ferris, already one of my favorite characters from Final Fantasy V. Of course, was going to have the best looking set of all of the Final Fantasy V characters as well. But this stuff will have bonus stats for players inside of the Occult Crescent. So you will be stronger with this stuff than without it. We have the Bart's armor. And then we have, this is straight up the Berserker set for Bart's and Galuf. I really only ever Berserker on Galuf when I do play the game most of the time. So I call it the Galuf Berserker set. But I mean, you can probably recognize that from the Berserker from Heroes Gauntlet, that it's similar-ish, at least to that guy. There you go. Boosted stats inside the content on this gear. Then we have the Cannoneer. Interesting to see Cannoneer's job armor used. It's just strange because Cannoneer is only available on the GBA and like one of the now defunct versions of like Final Fantasy V. It's like a secret bonus job in like in that game. So the fact that they've kind of hard indexed onto Cannoneer is really funny. Not to mention, you're just Captain Crunch. As my chat is pointing out as I'm recording this, that's Captain Crunch. So I don't know. I just find it fascinating. I also like the carbuncle just staring at it from the back right here. There you go. This is Time Mage. Enjoy your dunce caps. That's Time Mage armor though. And then that was all they showed for Crescent Isle, but they did also show this armor set, this more casual wear, I guess casual business wear. This is probably treasure maps, I assume. I think most of us assume at this point. Then they wanted to show us some rewards. We have a beagle for one of the minions being added. We have that thing, which I think I know what that is. I forget his name. I can't remember his name. But I know what he is. He's like one of 3. Oh, God. Angry onion chewing gum. Nerid? Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think that's Nerid. But I also said that this minion has a pretty... Yeah, Phobos, Triton, or Nereid. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I couldn't remember like which one that is. But that's Triton. Okay, they said his story is interesting. So I'm curious to see what it'll actually be. There are... Oh, you know what? It is them. I missed this when I was watching the live letter. All 3 of them are here. I didn't see... I missed this line of text. Yeah, all 3 of them are here. Triton, Phobos, and Nereid are all minions. Okay, that makes sense. So they are just going to be bringing all 3 of them straight in. Yeah, that's another boss from Final Fantasy VI from Kyan's dream sequence, if I'm remembering correctly. I played Final Fantasy VI not long ago. I think it's the first boss in Kyan's dream sequence. So, yeah, another classic Final Fantasy reference. I don't know what that thing is. I thought it was a fish at first. Oh, no, they guard the undersea trench tap. That's right. And then also show in 6. Right. I totally forgot they guard the tablet in the undersea trench. Damn, I completely forgot that they're also there. I mean, 6 is my favorite game, so I remember them way better. Yeah, I don't know what this thing is. And that's not helping. So, yeah, that's, I don't know. We'll call him Joel. He's got, is that a diaper? I think he's got a diaper on. That's not a Pikmin. We've also got a dove, which makes me want to watch Home Alone 2. Then we have an oppressor minion, probably PvP. We have a little rover from the moon, which has a smiley face on it. Look at the little smiley face. And yes, that's deliberate. Even the mech, I don't know if you'll notice that you noticed it earlier when we were looking at the mech stuff very briefly, but the mech has a smiley face on the back too. And then also, then we get into the mounts. And this is probably from Forked Tower. It is literally like the demon brick. Like, one of the bosses we know is a demon wall that like spins around. It's in the trailer. And you're just inside the brick. It has an evil face on the back as well. And when you fly, your hands actually stick out the side and you do this. You can kind of see them right here. You can see these little like nubs right here. That's Yoshi P's character's hand just flapping about. We also have the cyber car. This had very special music, and I don't think Yoshi P was supposed to play it. And in fact, he doesn't think he was supposed to play the music from this. But this is probably the M8S mount. Everyone actually thought this was the mount we would get from M8S. Was one of the cars that's around the Arcadian. Good guess. It was a pretty reliable guess, but a good guess all the same. So yeah, you can see it flying around. I wonder if it'll be a multi-seater and if you can see players in the back seats as they're riding around. That'd be pretty funny. We have this is another version of the mech from Cosmic Exploration. This one's darker, but still all the same. Then we have this. We have this airship mount. This is also from Occult Crescent. And this is almost certainly from the lore notes. It might not be, but I'm guessing it's from the lore boat, from the lore notes. So I guess technically that makes it a lore boat. And yeah, it's cool. Just standing on the wheel. Just standing on the wheel. It's, instead of driving the wheel, well, I mean, you're just kind of holding it and using it to stand up, I suppose. But yeah, that's it's looking good. This mount right here. And then our wings. Since Beatrix is the trial, when the wings are in flight, you've got it's funny because on the ground they're very basic, but when you launch up into the air, they like grow like Beatrix's armor, and they have the sword on the back. It's cool. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. So big fan. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and the dev team wanted to remind Yoshi P a couple of things. One, to show off sprint and jog, which I mentioned earlier. But two, they are adding action queuing for food, pots, and sprint. Now, that's not going to make sense to everyone because not all of you do hardcore endgame content. But basically, in Final Fantasy XIV, in order to eliminate the latency between you pressing an action and the server performing the action, the game actually queues up most of your actions. So if you've ever, if you go in the game right now, press an action, and then while the GCD is spinning, towards the later end, the last half a second to a second before the action goes off, just one time press a different action, or even press the same action if it can be spammed, and it will go off. It's because the game has queued that action up ahead of time, so there's a 0 ms latency on you executing the action. Now, of course, there's other things at play there. There's the animation lock that prevents you from using another action, but you can still queue up actions even during that time, which is largely why that time exists. It's to create action queues within the game system. However, food, pots, and sprint have never been queuable. So if you use them at a time when the animation lock for queuing is not available, or is currently ongoing, they will not go off, or specifically after an action has been executed. So now, no more, oh, my sprint didn't go off. Oh, my pots didn't go off. Oh, I have to weave food because I forgot to use it between. All of that stuff will just work way better. It'll just work as if you were using another action. So it's going to be a huge quality of life for anyone who actually does end game content and needs to activate these skills in such a manner. And that's everyone who does endgame content, trust me. And then this just shows off the jogging thing. I mentioned this earlier. We can go through it. And that was pretty much it, other than the QVC section. Here are the dates for all the content. March 25th for patch, April 1st for raid. Hopefully the raid's not a joke. April 22nd for cosmic exploration, and May 27th for occult Crescent. Then they got into QVC. They showed off, you know, some new merchandise that they have. You know, it's the hoodie. There's a barrel tender plush, a phone case, a bag, a Moogle hoodie, a whole bunch of pins here, some sleep masks, all that stuff. They briefly like try them on. They get each other dressed, so how nice and comfy they are. And then they put on they don't actually put them over their eyes, but you know, they have the fat cat sleep mask here, the Chocobo sleep mask right there. They're also doing a collaboration with keycaps, desk pads, and a collaboration keyboard with novel keys. That's really cool, but did you know that you can also get the SteelSeries Apex Pro mechanical keyboard by typing !SteelSeries in my Twitch chat and using the 12% discount code, or looking in the description of my YouTube videos and using that link and discount code to save 12% year round. So maybe do that, get the SteelSeries keyboard, and then buy the keycaps separately. SteelSeries did also release a brand new line of mouse pads. You can see the boxes in the back over there, so you get that too. Maybe just slap a Y'shtola sticker right on it as well. Okay, so with that, we but I will say this for the keycaps: this is the greatest keycap of all time. Just full stop. The fact that the 16 vuln keycap goes on the escape key could not be more my feeling about seeing 16 vuln stacks. Could not be more accurate to my emotion towards it. So, and then they show some of the other keycaps that they have, different colors for different roles, etc., or just like the flat, you know, black one, the different job ones for the F keys and all that stuff. The Eorzean language on the actual like numbers and letters here as well. And then they show off the desk mats as well. Two versions, same design, but different fabrics. Hey, all the SteelSeries new mouse pads are also different fabrics for different needs for your mouse. Something that's a little bit less frictiony, so it's more speedy. One that's more balanced. One that's, you know, more for performance. All that stuff. You know. Just, yeah, honestly, they should put the Vuln stack keycap on F4. That would be funny. They're also doing an Isatan special collaboration. Some samples will be available and some sales will begin at this, so we can see the whiskeys that we have here. A Heidelin whiskey and a Zodiac. Listen, I want these whiskeys so bad. The only alcohols I drink are like whiskeys and bourbons for the most part. Although I feel kind of bad because I would want to drink them and open them, but it's like also... Although, no. I would drink the whiskey and then save the bottle in the case. Yeah, obviously. But it's already sold out, so I'm not going to get it. Anyway. And then also there's the shirt, which had the design that they were just showing before. These are line stickers, which I love the Fox Hollows line sticker right there. I'm not going to lie. You know how people use the skull emote? Like when somebody's like, I'm dead, and they use the skull emote. I imagine using the fucking brink of death one in place of the skull emote. Like, if I was texting, I would love to, between me and my, like, Final Fantasy 14 friends, texting just to fucking use that instead of the skull. I love the idea of that one in particular. Oh, man, that's so funny. This line emote, the one with the car, when she tells you to come over to watch Netflix, that's when you use this one for line emotes. It's perfect. It's like all of these, I can think of social situations in which... absolutely, you're going to be using that one. All right. We have the Primals doing their Dark Decades tour. This is just in Japan. Always sad that it's always Japan only. Man. They will have some new merchandise as well for the Primals. You have this Ifrit art on the shirt. Looks really nice. I like this team most of all. This is medium size. That's 5.7 in freedom units. 170 CM. That's 5.7 in freedom units. Then this is the ongoing sweepstakes from after they added the emote in 7.16, and they are looking for an assistant community manager for the German team for Final Fantasy 14 and another Japanese to English interpreter / translator. So if you are interested in those jobs, scan those codes because they are looking to hire. And then they're going to do a patch note reading on March 24th, and that was pretty much the end of everything. So yeah. That's he says Occult Crescent can be a big time sink. I'm actually really looking forward to everything. Now, the only thing is that, like, there's the most major criticism of this live letter is one that is a completely valid one, but it kind of compounds something I've been complaining about for months and months and months. All of the content that Dawntrail is planning, all of it that it's promised, it's been very good thus far, and it looks like it will continue to be good. I just wish it didn't take another 9 weeks after patch to get to it. Like, within the context of the patch, I'm glad that it's not layered on top of anything else. But again, they really need to reassess next expansion when they release some of these things. Cosmic Exploration was already out, and we already had Star Contributor stuff going, and we had another planet coming in 0.2, or maybe Occult Crescent being out in 0.1x. Just, I feel like everything in terms of how the expansions are, it's just better overall. I think they should plan for that in the future, and hopefully they do, because waiting another 9 weeks for Occult Crescent when everyone's already been waiting for, at that point, it will have been literally almost a year. Like, it's very close. It's off by like a month and some days. It's just a lot of wait, and I think they really need to reassess that. And I will keep saying it because it is my feedback, and it's what I would like to see them improve. Do I expect it? No. Do I want it? Absolutely. So with that, that is going to be a wrap for my overview on live letter number 86. I'm just going to stop scrolling up for now. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned. Obviously, I'll be doing all my usual content on the patch cycle, job changes, you know, the usual. I've been doing this 11 years now, basically. Oh my God, I've been doing this for 11 years around the time Occult Crescent comes out. Dead. With that depressing thought, I will see all of you in the next video. I'm going to still be hanging out on stream, by the way, for those watching the stream side. This is just the YouTube video end. But yeah, on the YouTube video side, I'll see you later. Until then.